kill off stage as much as you kill on stage. So when I started, everyone was telling me to rock the stage, rock that 30 minutes, rock that 15, rock that 45 minutes. My tip is to kill off stage. Are you killing your organization? Are you killing in advertising? Are you killing on social media? Are you killing in your personal life? Like, kill off stage with the same intensity as you want to kill on stage.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast. Rick Roberts here. Got a good episode for you today with Mike Goodwin, Bowtie comedy of Mike Goodwin. It's going to be a fun show. Some really good tips for not only just beginners, but people who have been doing it for a while. He's very honest and transparent and lets us know some of the successes as well as some of the tough times that led to being a better comedian. All good stuff from Mike Goodwin. You can check him out at comedianmikegoodwin.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for the episode, the Art of Bombing podcast. You'll hear a little bit more about that in the middle of today's show. The Art of Bombing goes into deep detail on comics and shows that did not go well. It's a fun listen, a variety of comics. Comics sometimes you wouldn't hear necessarily on this podcast. You might hear on that podcast. So you'll catch some stories and some folks you haven't heard before. That's always a good thing, and different points of view. So check out the Art of Bombing podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcast. You know, we couldn't do the show if we didn't have a little bit of sponsorship, and you can pitch in and sponsor the show for $7 a month. You can join us on the Patreon level of Club 52, which will get you a weekly email to help you tune up your comedy career. The business, the performing, the writing, all those things are covered in those 52 emails, one each week. You sign up, you get one that day, and then every 7 days, another one arrives in your inbox. And I did that because if I told you everything you needed to do, which is everything I need to do as well, you can't do it all at the same time. But through Club 52, you get bite-sized, actionable tips delivered to your inbox once a week, and you can take that week and knock out the tasks that I'm giving you every single week. Nothing is overwhelming where it's going to take you more than that week, and it won't take you the entire time. But it gives you something you can focus on each week, and by the end of the year, you should notice a difference in your website presence, your presence on stage, and the presence that your fans are bringing to you because you're blessing them so much with your incredible comedy. Hey, I don't know about that last one, but it's a good thing. Club 52, check it out. Go to schooloflaughs.com/PATREON. And lastly, before we get into today's episode, we have a graduation show coming up at Third Coast Comedy Club right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Check out Third Coast Comedy Club for more details or email me, schooloflaughs@gmail.com, if you'd like to know more about how to get tickets and see that. And I guess this is the very lastly, if you want to catch me doing the warm-up for the Huckabee Show on TBN, I'll be doing that 3 times in July. You can catch me on July 13th, that's a Friday, 17th, that's a Tuesday, and on the 27th, another Friday. All right, let's get into today's episode with Mike Goodwin. Mike is a funny guy. I've known him for maybe 5 to 7 years, but this was the first chance we really got to sit down and talk for almost an hour. I edited a little bit out of it here and there, but you're going to get to know him as well as I got to know him. Very cool guy. And let's check out the episode. I'll talk to you on the flip side. Well, I am here with Mike Goodwin. How's it going, bud?
Good, man. Outstanding.
I've been trying to get you on for a long time, but I always prefer to do this face-to-face if I can. Thanks for carving out time.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's good to see. Last night I got to catch a longer set because I've only seen like 5 to 7 minute sets when we've done little showcases together. Right. Last night, man, it was a nice pace. Yeah. It was solid material all the way through, and the crowd was totally into it. Very confident on stage without being cocky. I just felt like the crowd was like, whatever you wanted to do with them, they were ready to go.
It was fun, man. You know, I think the new thing I'm really working on is my timing, like just holding it till that edge. And there were moments where people started laughing in that space of time.
Nice.
Like if I would have just went on with the next joke, I would have lost that good laugh.
Yeah, it takes a little while to get patient, doesn't it?
Right. Just to be, you know, it's just like watching a jump shot fall. Like there's a space of time between when it leaves your hand and when it hits the net. So sometimes that shot takes a little longer, and sometimes it's kind of like a direct shot. So last night I was kind of shooting more with our arc in it. So
you were Steph Curry in it last night.
Yeah, I was shooting them from
super rainbows, like a U-turn U upside down.
Right. So you just let it go, and it's gonna fall.
And it falls harder. Like that's the thing. It picks up gravity. Like you're like, oh, where's this gonna go? Oh, it's gonna go right in. And it's like
right
it's a bigger payoff.
And then when it hits, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first time I used that analogy. So that's a cool analogy.
That works out. And is that a focus you have here lately of walking that line and stretching it out a little bit more?
Right. And I'm gonna tell you what happened. I went to a play. And it was this play about the small town, and a woman died that they thought was a woman, but when she died, they found out it was a man.
Oh,
so
man.
the play was set up between the bar where the men were and the beauty salon with the women. So they were having conversations. So there was one scene where I think the men found out or the women found out that Miss Ida was Mr. Ida, and they had to make a phone call to the other. And so when the guy picked up the phone, he just didn't say anything. And the audience, like, we just were pulsating to laugh. Like, we just were like, and it just kept building. And he was like, and he would say like, yeah, I need to, and the longer he waited, the laughter just kept generating.
The anticipation.
I was like, wow, I think I can use that. I think I can utilize that little technique of just, everybody knows it's funny. They know it's coming, but you just hold it. And man, when you release the laughter, it's really full. So
well, first off, that's cool to always pick up stuff from other performances and go to see live experiences.
Right.
You know, I remember back when I first moved here, we went to see a Brooks and Dunn in concert, like an outdoor theater.
Right.
And I'm a pretty good. They had a lot of hits, so I'm like, this will be fun. But just watching the way they kept the crowd involved, because their songs are kind of the same bunch of songs, and then they'll slow it down, But from the T-shirt guns to the water balloons to the whatever it was, it's like, well, they're not wasting any time. They're trying to keep, and it's a lawn, people sitting on a lawn. And I took some things back from that as far as making things bigger, make it a little bit more fun. And then last night you did what we just talked about in the building that anticipation with the joke about Satan's wife.
Right.
You let it all out there, and then you get, I got some questions. Right? Is that the word?
Right, right.
First off, I didn't know Satan was married. But you paused between that, so you let them know you had questions, and that was funny. And then before you got into your questions, they started formulating their questions.
Right.
So that when you would say yours, it would meet them, or they would anticipate that you would get there to theirs.
Right.
Very, very good stuff. And I will try to drop some of your stuff into the podcast so people can hear some of these jokes.
That's cool.
But yeah, the anticipation without milking it, and that's like a fine line.
Right. It's rhythm. Comedy is beats.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a guy this morning about Darren Striblow, about a bit I'm doing about elephant. So the joke is, when I was a kid, like, so kids now can Google all this information. It's like, when I was a kid, we had to go to the dictionary. If I didn't know how to spell a word, my mother would tell me to look it up in the dictionary. And I'm like, Mama, I don't know how to spell a word. And I was like, I spent 4 weeks in the L's looking for elephant.
Yeah.
So I was asking, is it funnier to say 4 weeks or say a month? Like, just those little tweaks. I think that's how we keep working on the craft. Like, I think there's an opportunity. And I think the beat of me saying, I spent 4 weeks, space, in the L's, space, looking for elephant. And that just, it brings everyone together. And then the punchline. So I think 4 weeks is a better beat. Rhythm is better than if I say a hard month.
Right. And I think even I would try it by saying I was in the L's for 4 weeks and let them dial it in that way.
Right. Trying to figure out what was he doing there.
Because they'll start to figure, he was thinking elephant was L-E-P. And so I would say, I was stuck in the L's.
Right.
And I think you'll get a laugh and go, for 4 weeks. And that'll get a bigger laugh.
Right. Looking for elephants.
Yeah.
Looking for the word elephant.
That's excellent. But it is all timing, and it's always it's like a Rubik's Cube, twisting it and turning it and go, okay, all the colors line up on this side.
Right.
Let's do that. That's really nice. And Claiborne Cox is another guy who's very good at patience.
Right.
I mean, I don't know any. I told him in the podcast I did with him, Bob Hope and you had the patience to wait a minute if you needed it.
It's like awkward.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, but especially when you've gone through the material and you know where you're gonna get the laugh, then you can build that up a little bit more.
Exactly.
It's tricky when you first try the stuff out. Do you find you still kind of rush the new stuff a tiny bit, or you kind of build it in that space right out of the get-go?
You know what's funny to me is when people laugh at places you don't typically, you're used to them laughing at. So it's like, whoa, where did that come from? So that's the thing with the new stuff. I don't know where the laugh is gonna be, and sometimes where I think the laugh is gonna happen, it doesn't, and then it may be that follow-up comment. So punchlines are always been my kind of bugaboo of like my premises. I even have like good premises. I have to be really structured to say that's the punchline. Like this is the payoff. And so sometimes I figure out the punchline and then have to go back and write a joke to fit the punchline.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do that sometimes where I'll think of the punchline first and go, okay, how can I set this up?
Right.
And then you realize, man, there could be 20, 30 different ways,
Right.
but there's one best way.
Right.
And then once you get that piece together.
And I used to kind of feel bad because if I had a great premise and I didn't have a punchline, I used to get frustrated versus saying, well, sit that over there and let it simmer in a pot and we'll come back to that later. And that's someone told me very early in my comedy career, behind every joke is a comma and not a period. So there's always something that you can add on to it. So that's a good way to look at, hey, this is not working. Let me put a comma here and come back.
Yeah.
And
No, that's a good point. And jokes, other thing I always find interesting about comedy is you're the one who decides when the joke is done, but there's always probably something else you could do.
Right.
But you know your audience, and even if they're not your audience, once they are in front of you, you know how far you can take certain things and you know how long you can stay on a topic. And when you start getting anxious to get out of it, they're going to be too.
Right.
So if you're comfortable doing it, like, Brian Regan is pretty good at staying in a topic for a long period of time. Seinfeld the same way. Jim Gaffigan probably more than anybody. He'll stay on bacon for 20 minutes.
Right.
But if there's one more angle, he's going to find it in there somewhere.
The idea about a period, there's probably always something to add, but there's a period for you. Like there's a time where you're like, I'm kind of tired of doing this. Or, like last night I didn't do my not right, not wrong, my skipping joke. And people say, man, you still do it? I'm like, yeah, I do it, but I have more stuff that I like doing. There was a time where I had to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to do it now. So
that's a nice feeling,
it's
isn't
good it's good to have some hits that you don't play. It's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And I literally did, when I was up there, because I had, I was trying to stay within the 20 to 25 minute range. So by the time I got to stuff I wanted to do, my new stuff, the stuff that was working, you just want to have too many hits. Like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll get that next time.
Right.
So that was a good feeling to walk away. And I totally just was like, oh, I didn't do that. And I didn't plan to do it in the beginning, so it just wasn't on my radar.
Oh, that's even better.
Right.
When you walk out there and go, hey, that worked even better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, because sometimes you need to do it. Like, you need to go get it. Like,
no, that's good.
A call to the bullpen.
Right. Uh-oh. We're replacing pitchers after the first inning. This is not good.
Yes, 14 pitches in the first 1 minute. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I never thought of it. Like
4 batters.
Get your pitch count on stage.
We got to get somebody else in here.
That's funny. I wonder if the sound guy is like the manager's like, oh, we got to send somebody up to the stage.
He's just walked, bases
just
are
calm
loaded.
him down a little bit. Calm him down. Just take the ball out of his hands. Calm him down.
There's a
Tell him
time
to throw outside, walk
Right.
the next guy, give us some time to warm up.
Start warming up your shoulder, man. We got to put you in the game.
That is pretty funny. And that's awesome. When did you start comedy?
So I started doing comedy. I did a New Year's Eve service at my church, 2005.
Okay, so that wasn't too long ago, really.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So you did this show at your church on New Year's Eve. Like, how did they know that you wanted to do comedy if you hadn't done it?
There was a comedian that I go to church with, a guy named Akintunde.
Oh, yeah.
Akintunde, club guy, was out of Savannah doing comedy for years on the road, gotten saved, gave his life to Christ, stopped doing club comedy and started doing clean. And so he came to our church, and we were serving together in the media ministry. I wasn't a comedian or anything. I just was a brother at the church. So I always I was always funny. I had funny ideas, but I never thought to be, oh man, I can do this.
Yeah.
So we're serving together in the media ministry, and I would run ideas by him. I was like, hey man, you ever thought about this? You ever thought about that? And we would laugh. Then we would kind of get into those cracking jokes on one another sessions, like the whole team. But there were moments where I would be the last person standing. Then he would annihilate me. But
Yeah.
I was in the fight longer than anybody else.
Right.
So I started to feel kind of good about myself. And then it was kind of like he wasn't going 100%. Like
Yeah.
he's just humoring me. And so I would do those things. We would crack jokes. I would run ideas by him. And he let me do that for about 30 days. And then one day he said, look, man, this is some really good material. He said, you can either keep telling me these jokes and I'm going to get on stage and tell them and get paid, or you can get on stage and tell them and get paid, because I'm not going to give you the money from the jokes, from the shows I do. And I was like, well, shucks, I guess I'll go up. A comedian says the stuff that I'm doing is some funny stuff. So he let me open for him at our church on New Year's Eve. So it was his show. And I came out and I had like a movie set. Like I had standing ovation, people in the rafters. Woo woo, this guy's the next big thing. And I had that show, and then the next 2 years I bombed for 2 years straight. I just was horrible.
I love it because it's so honest, and it happens to everybody.
Straight 2 years of bombing. So I had this like pinnacle moment.
Yeah.
And then I went and paid my dues for 2 years of scrapping and struggling.
That 2 years, like how many times were you like, maybe
So here's the interesting thing. So what happened, Akintunde at that point had started like doing this comedy competition. This was the first time he did it. So he identified two other guys. So he saw that, he let me open for him, and then he was like, well, man, I'm going to start taking you out with me. So he identified the winner of the first competition, a guy named Todd Mickens, and then another guy, Corey Johnson, was the second runner-up, or the second place guy. So he started taking us on the road. Now, I didn't know the two of them bonded. They were like, hey, man, we were in this competition together. So they were competitive with one another. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, tonight I'm going to be funnier than you. They thought I was peers with Akintunde. They thought I was kind of in the comedy game, and I was just a step below. And like, I've never done comedy. Like, I did the thing at my church. So the three of us were on the road. The lineup was Corey was first, Todd was second, I was third, then Ak. So out of the bunch, Todd had the most talent and ability, just naturally funny. He just had he looks funny. Like, people want to laugh at him. Like, he just has that charismatic personality. Corey was more technical. He had good jokes, but his stage presence wasn't strong. But he was always a solid. So I tell people, Todd is either, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, every night he was either going to be a 8 or a 10, like somewhere between there. Like, even in his worst nights, he was still an 8. And when he was a 10, he was a 10. Corey would hover around a 6, 7. Like, he was pretty solid out the gate. Good show start, and he kind of was methodic in his pacing. Todd would come there, set it on fire. Now, here I come. I have great material. Like, I had great concepts and jokes, but my stage presence was awful. So at best, I would be a 7, but at worst, I was like a 4. Mm-hmm. So sometimes Todd would light it on fire, and then I'd get out there and just tear the room all the way down, bring all the energy down. But it didn't matter, because Ak was going to come up and do a great show. Like, so I didn't know how valuable it was for us to get that experience. And so I would, but I was still getting shows separate from the group. So I would get, individual shows where I would do really well. Like, I do my 20 minutes or 15 minutes and have really good sets. And I would always say this too. I was the funniest comedian in the car on the way to the show. Like, I was killing in the car. Like, I longed for the person in the car to be the person on stage. And I was like, when I can get the guy out of the car on the stage, I'm gonna be in good shape. And it didn't happen till like 2 years later. And we all knew when it happened. Like, they knew when I would have my shows, they were like, good show, but it's like, man, you were much better on the way up. But that night that it happened, it was like something's changed.
And what do you think that was? Was it just comfort level, or just
it was pride? So the spiritual part of it was, I wasn't I was doing comedy because I wanted to do comedy. I was doing comedy because Akintunde said, hey, man, you should do comedy. I thought it was cool. So I would get up. I would do 5 minutes of ideas I thought about on the way to the show. Like, that was my start. Then if you ever saw me, I'm a really sharp dresser, so I have bow ties, I have on suits. And I would get up there and say that. I was like, oh, look at my cool suit. Look at my cool bow tie.
Right.
But it was kind of self-deprecating, but it wasn't that self-deprecating because I would say something like, yeah, but I got a hole in my sock. Come on, man. Like, so I turned the audience off immediately. Like, my first 5 minutes was death because I was doing new material. Then I was up there talking about how cool my suit is and my bow tie. And I really had a come to Jesus moment where God was like, who are you talking? And I wasn't even talking to the audience. I just was
doing it for you.
For me, I just was like peacocking around on stage. I was just strutting around. And I didn't really care. I mean, I wanted to do well, but I wasn't thinking about the audience. I wasn't looking at people. I looked over their heads. I never considered them. It was all about Mike Goodwin. It was all about, oh, I got this new joke that I thought about. Oh, man, I got this pocket square that matches my shirt or some stupid thing I was thinking. And I just get up there and bomb. Like, the audience immediately knew he's not here for us. He's up there by himself. We're going to sit here for 7 minutes, and then we're going to erase him out of our memory. You know, we're going to get on Facebook or do whatever we're going to do. So once I realized that, hey, man, you're talking to a room of people. Like, you're not just up there doing a recitation or a monologue. That's when it changed. You know, so the cool thing now, before I go up, my wife will text me and say, have fun and bless the people. So, like, that's our common. If I'm doing those two things, I had a good night. Like, if I had fun and I blessed the people, that's what it's about. And so once I started blessing people, that's when the change.
Absolutely.
That's when the change happened.
And that's funny. I was talking to somebody recently too, and it's a totally different conversation about totally different subject matter.
Right.
But they were used to doing the same thing, like that 5 to 7 minutes. You were kind of comfortable doing that. You'd gotten used to doing it. And we kind of took away from the conversation that a lot of times people get into a comfortable place and don't realize it's not the right place to be in.
Right.
Just because you're comfortable there doesn't make it right.
Right.
It just makes it routine.
Right.
So you got to get yourself uncomfortable sometime, or look at the situation and see if it's the right place to be.
Am I supposed to even be here in this comfortable seat?
Right.
This might be someone else's seat.
Absolutely. I mean, just think people hanging out with friends, they're comfortable around them. It's not the right group of friends.
Right.
I mean, there's a million different ways you can apply that. But
Right.
You get kind of lulled into, this is what I did yesterday. This will come, but you never can break out of it unless you explore a little bit. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's what happened, man. I really had to tell myself, Mike, you're not in the audience. Like, you're not talking to you. Even the way I was writing jokes for me to laugh. And I think most comedians do that. We do find material that we find funny. But I have a weird sense of humor, so I need to be more open to like, okay, that one step is too many steps. Like, stop at that step. Like, when I'm really met my group and people that love me and know me, then I can take that next step. But as you're building, you know, you want material for everyone to enjoy and have a good time. So I wasn't even writing to the audience. I was just writing to what I thought was funny. And some people say do that, and
that should be part of the equation, but it shouldn't be the only part.
Right.
Or else you're just going to be selling CDs to yourself.
Right. It was mine. That was 90% of it. I had the 10 of other people.
Another thing about the South, we love nicknames in the South. Love nicknames. There's some people I've been knowing my entire life. I don't know their real names. My brother called me the other day. He said, hey, man, you know Mark Davis's mom passed away. I said, man, I don't know no Mark Davis, man. He's like, Stanky, man. Stanky mama passed. Oh, wait. I'm like, why you ain't say that from the start? I need to give Stank a call. We nickname people after foods. I know a cornbread, a pork chop, and a collard green. I know this one dude, his nickname is Boss, and he ain't got no job. I'm like, who you the boss of, yourself? Yeah, but I think white dudes have the coolest nicknames. I really do. Because white dudes' nicknames go with them their entire life. White dudes have nicknames like Rusty, Skip, Chip. Like, your nickname could be Chip. You could be the CEO of a bank. You could have Chip on your business cards. The brothers can't do that. Pookie can't be a branch manager at the bank. You don't trust your money with Pookie. I'm like, right this way, Dr. Junebug will see you. I'm like, no, he will not. What you're not gonna do is have me in a room with a Dr. Junebug. That's what you're not gonna do.
Yeah. The connecting with the audience that's my number one thing. Like, if I'm not connecting with them, then I could do this at home.
Well, what are we doing here?
You know, and it's not always easy to do, but to leave pockets in there for disruption, for great things to happen in the cracks.
Right.
You know, that's important. It takes a little time and confidence to do all that, but a lot of the good stuff is not planned.
Right.
But you're alert to it.
Right. Even last night when I said whatever I said about the hot sweater, that wasn't what was planned. Like,
right.
I was hot. And I had a sweater on, and people looking at me. Right. It's like, dude, you got a sweater on. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I acknowledged the elephant in the room. Huge laugh, and we went on.
Yeah. And a lot of the audience was looking for elephant in the L's.
Right.
When you said that.
They were just searching.
They're like, I'll be back with this joke in a minute. I got 3 more weeks and 6 more days and 23 hours and 50 more minutes.
I'm going to find it.
That's awesome, man. So you're in South Carolina.
Right.
Who are people in your area that you can hang out with as far as comedy? Is Ox still around?
Ox still in Columbia. He's on the road a lot, and we go to the same church. So we connect regularly. Marty Simpson's in town. Corey Johnson, the guy I talked about, he's another guy. The other guy, Todd's not even doing stand-up anymore. So that's, one of the unfortunate parts of our genre. People that you started off with, you may not end with.
Yeah, were all 4 of you guys in that Gas Too High tour? Did you
pieces
go on that?
of it? Yeah, there were pieces of it. I think at that point he started incorporating like Horace H.B. Sanders. I think Joy ILO was on a few of those. Small Fire maybe. So I may have got a spot date. We were all the stuff that happened before that stuff.
Okay.
So we were like the guinea pig tours. Like I
think I saw you on that in Tennessee, not too far from Nashville.
Right. We might have
Tennessee
did something
or someplace
right.
like that.
But we did some weird. I remember we did a date. I guess it was a tour. Quote, I air quoting tours out here, people. So we went to Tupelo, Mississippi, and we basically got a hotel and cold called people and like, hey, come out this weekend to the whatever comedy show at this hotel. So he had a hotel room. And we were calling. We wasn't ourselves. Like, we were representing this agency and want to let you know about this comedy opportunity in your city.
Right.
And so we did that, man. And like the only people that came out there was a church having services there, and I think we were there for 3 nights. And that same church came out, and they wasn't a big church, so they probably had like 7 people.
Oh wow!
So it was like, wow. And that was kind of like my orientation to comedy. And I have a unique kind of thing. I was solely in churches for about 4 years. I just I started in church and I only did churches. I was getting church gigs, but I always had my interest in like, man, I bet you I could do well in the club. Cause there's that kind of thing that happens in some Christian circles about club versus
Is he
church.
club funny and Christian clean?
Right. So I wanted to be good. Like I didn't care where the venue was. I wanted wherever people were lined up, I want a microphone and make those people laugh. And Ak was really, he was a great mentor as it relates to getting me opportunities to go on the road. The amount of stage time I got at that early age, most times when you start off, you're getting 5 minutes at an open mic, if that, 3 minutes.
Right.
We were getting 10 to 15 minutes a night in legitimate shows to fail. Like there were times I just went up there, it was horrible. And
you almost went no tie comedy.
Yeah, it was like no tie comedy. Like
what you're not going to do is put on that bow tie.
Get him out of here. And so we had this great opportunity, but he kind of cautioned us about the club in terms of like the road dog perspective of the club.
Trappings.
Yeah, just like don't get caught up in just kind of this existence of going to this place, to this place, to this place. And you just can't get. It's like having a job. Like you left your job. You didn't leave your job to get caught up in another job. Like you wanted to create a career. So I kind of looked at the club like, wow, that looks kind of cool. Like all of my buddies that were Christian guys that were working clubs. And then Spanky Brown, who just recently passed, he was at Columbia. He was in Columbia, South Carolina. He did the Comedy House, and he had me do a guest spot. And I did a guest spot with him there. I did a guest spot at Comedy Cabana in Myrtle Beach. And that kind of was my orientation to the club. And I went in like with probably 30 minutes of solid material. Like, so when you show up as a person no one has ever seen and you got material, they're like, what are you doing? Like, where were you doing shows? So I was kind of an anomaly in terms of just when I arrived at the club. I had polish. I had some shine. I wasn't an open micer. I wasn't an MC. So I basically leaped into the feature spot, by virtue of doing my time in churches.
That's interesting. And that's another good thing to always keep in mind, to see how strong your material is. And I think it's great the more Christian comedians can pop into a comedy club and stay true.
Right.
I know several that it's flip-flop, whatever needs to get done to rock the house.
Right.
And I always like, you're talented enough that you don't have to flop it and do the old clubby stuff. You can do your own thing and bring them up a level with you.
And that's what I went in with my church material. That's all I had. Mm-hmm. So, it would have been weird for me to start doing like cursing and doing vulgar. Like, dude, you got 4 years over here. So, like, I had to be better.
Right.
And the way I noticed it, I kind of explained people to, like, the club was like the NFL. Church is like college football. It's like, it's a high level, but it's faster in the club. Like, it's the speed of it just happens at a faster pace.
It sure does.
And there's some innuendo that I was winning with in the church that they don't care. Like, when I don't, like, if you don't say sex in the church, that's funny. Like, you say, me and my wife were, and if you just kind of, yeah. In the church, that's a laugh. Yeah. But if you're in the club, like, me and my wife were, if you're being coy, they're like, what?
They're like, he forgot what his wife was doing. What
they was doing.
They were doing taxes. We don't know what you're doing. We all know the word. It must not be.
You wasn't having sex, apparently.
You remember that. It must not have.
So it was those awkward learning moments of like, oh, that's not cute over here. Like, that's not. Right. That's not a thing that goes.
Yeah, so you either keep the joke or you just move on past it and say something else can fill this space.
Because the word sex doesn't make them, ooh, he said sex, where you could get some of a reaction in the club, in the church.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's good to dip your toes in both things and kind of keep things tight. For me, I like to do a lot of corporate events where I can be as wordy as I want.
Right.
Because they're not used to any humor at all.
Right.
So I do try to tune it up, every couple months at the club. And, if I'm doing like a set for TV or a showcase, I know I got to get right to it.
Right.
I'm like, man, that's the way it should be all the time.
Right. Your club, man, it just puts that sharp. It's like the edge from club work, man. I don't think there's anything that you can sharpen.
Gonna jump in here just for a second and give you a little update on our sponsors. We've got a new sponsor for the show. It's the Art of Bombing podcast. Here's a little information about them, and you can click through in the show notes to go right to it and subscribe to their podcast. I think you'll dig it.
Calling all comedians and fans of comedy. Join me, Dan Bublitz Jr., every Tuesday for the Art of Bombing podcast, as I talk with comedians of all levels about their worst shows and what can be learned from them. Learning lessons not only to become better comedians, but better people. The Art of Bombing takes an in-depth look at bombing on stage to turn failure into success. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe today.
You're doing churches. Do you also do some speaking things right now?
Yeah.
Are you easing into that? 'Cause I know we talked about that might be another step for you.
Right. So basically, I've been doing club, churches, and I had been doing corporate comedy. Like, so people would bring me in for a banquet or for an end of the conference type thing, like to do stand-up. So I had someone reach out. They saw me do stand-up, but they were planning a conference for social workers, and they called and said, hey, I saw Mike at this thing. Does he speak at all? And at that moment, I wasn't. I was just doing comedy. And they said, man, we have this conference. It's a pretty heavy conference of topics, neglect, abuse, and we don't want to send people away with that being
Right.
the last thing that they thought about. We would love him to do what I saw him do, but kind of put some points in there. And so I did it. Like I went in, I said, well, yeah, we can, when someone calls those type of bookings, you're like, yeah, we can, we put something together like that. You make up some
Say
story.
yes and figure it out.
You're like, right.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
like, let me call Rick Roberts because I think I've seen him. So that's what you do. You say, yep, I'll do it. And then you go and figure out what you're supposed to be doing. So I did the social worker thing and I put these points in. And it went well. Like it was really, really good. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And it was like on a Wednesday afternoon, and the paycheck was better than anything that I would have gotten at a club date. And so I was like, this is an interesting opportunity. But I went away from it and, didn't think much of it. Then a similar opportunity happened with like the public relations or association, something like PSRA or something like that. The public relations folks, they were having a national conference, and the theme was joy and something. And hey, I know this comedian, and so they brought me, and I did sort of the same thing. I put together this little thing, and so after that time, I was like, well, maybe this is something I need to do. Like I need to create this thing. But what happened with me early on, I tried to be a speaker. Well, I didn't try to be a speaker. This is a great story. So I was working at the University of South Carolina in student affairs. So I was getting my master's in higher ed administration, working with student organizations. I was working in student life. My goal before I started doing stand-up was to become the dean of students at a major university. Like if I would have been the VP of student affairs, I would have been fine. Like I probably would have wanted to be a president, but I think in my mind, if I was a VP of student affairs at some college, I'm good. So that's kind of my track. I was doing that. And so when I was in graduate school, we had this leadership conference, and they were asking for presenters. So I had noticed while working with student organizations that our students had a hard time transitioning from students to professionals. So if you call, this was back when we had answering machines. So if you call a student answer machine, they would have like the latest song on it, like boom, like half the song, and it's like, hey, at the beat, leave your name and number, peace. And it's like, whoa, like what if this was an internship? Or then I would email, I asked student for the email, and it'd be Big Booty Judy at 23. And it's like, oh, that's not good.
At Hotmail.
Right. At Hotmail.com.
If you're still slinging Hotmail, you're not getting any work.
Right. But Big Booty, like, we don't need to know your physical attributes on your email address. So I was looking at all these kind of things, handshakes, eye contact. So I created this presentation about professionalism. Like that was basically how to transition from college to the real world. It was a PowerPoint. I had these slides. I did this research, Dress for Success, all this stuff. I felt really strongly about it. I felt good about the presentation. And I think we had like a student-led leadership conference that I presented, and there were students from all over the state. And I killed. Like I was doing my presentation, but I was funny. Like because I had these examples like Big Booty Judy, and I had all this stuff that I was telling them information, but I was being humorous with it. And I was really killing. Like I didn't know what that was at the time, but I was killing. And afterwards, there was a group of students that was from USC Union. It was, I think they were a 2-year college, and they came up to me and they were just like, "Oh my goodness, this is one of the best presentations I've. It was so funny. It was so great. Oh, we would love at some point for you to come to our campus. That type of thing." I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, no problem." That was Saturday. Monday morning, I get a call from like their dean of students saying, "Hey man, a group of our students came back really excited about you. They want you to come. Would you be interested in being our Black History Month speaker?" So I was like, sure. Now, I've never spoken, and I've never spoken as it related to Black history. I'm Black, but I didn't. It was like, okay. I did a presentation on professionalism, so I'm like, I don't know how I can do that. So I created like this speech about Black History Month, and I went and did research, and I bombed. Like I went up there that day. I didn't get anybody's advice. I just was like, I'm gonna do this. Like maybe it's my calling. Man, I bombed so bad. It was horrible. Like it was bad. I could tell. Just my mouth was dry.
Oh, that's when you know it's not going
They
well.
had news cameras. It was bad, man. people don't want to shake your hand after you don't have a lot of conversation for you're not really engaging. So like, so when you gonna head back up the road? Like,
yeah. No.
And it's different to bomb comedy versus in a speech.
Right.
They're far more pleasant than than a comedy show. But I bombed, and I knew I bombed, and I just in that moment was like, I'm never speaking again. Like something in my brain said,
It was that tough.
speaking's not for me. Like I'm out of here. And so I always, even once I started doing stand up, people have always asked me, did I preach or speak? And I was like, no, comedy, man. I don't do that other stuff. And part of it, too, I knew some speakers, and I knew some speakers that were doing well, and I saw them kind of throw stuff together at the last minute and get up and do it. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to really be passionate about my topic. And so with those two kind of opportunities I had, I started thinking, like, what would I be interested in talking about? And I love leadership. Like, oftentimes people say, well, what would be the thing that you do that if if money's not an issue? And I probably would go and get a PhD. I think I would get an advanced degree and probably like leadership studies or something, like, something that there's no real job for. Like, I just love like you're not gonna get a position after that.
I'm gonna let you tell a story, but it just reminded me of a joke. I don't know if you ever saw Brett Leak, but he would always talk about, I think he framed it with the Republican convention or whatever, but he goes, I always like going to these Republican meetings. They're like, let's go to the leadership conference. Where is it? I'm not sure. Follow me.
Exactly.
But that's your passion.
So yeah, man, I'm all about leadership. I joined the Army after high school. I was commissioned as a Army signal officer. When I was on campus in college, I was in everything. I was in a fraternity. I was a student ambassador. I was a resident assistant. Like, I'm all about leadership. Like, it's just something about leadership that just I'm very passionate and interested in. And so I started thinking, wow, leadership and laughter. And I came up with this concept of leadership lessons I've learned from doing stand-up comedy. So I could do this presentation called Leadership and Laughter. And that's kind of what was born out of these opportunities. So now, I've been, booked to do, I've spoken at credit unions. I've spoken at hospital associations. I just most recently spoke at the South Carolina Department of Human Health and Human Services. So a lot of those opportunities start happening because I started, figuring out, okay, and I've created like a video and a presentation that, hey man, if y'all are interested in booking, I have this presentation available. And I went in, got a speaker's website, so you can go to Mike Goodwin Speaks as opposed to, comedianmikegoodwin.com if you're looking for keynote. And so I did that. And I most recently just did a commencement speech at Pinewood Prep, a private school in Summerville, South Carolina. So yeah, that branch, I guess, of my business is expanding pretty rapidly.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's always going to be comedians that are 100%. If you're not doing just comedy, then what's going on? But I do think as you get older, comedy is the vehicle for information. I mean, it's not like we can pop in and do an hour and do comedy, but we're fine. But there's more to it.
Right.
And I think God always gives us our primary talent. I think he gives us some secondary talents. Right. And so once we develop the first one, which is communicating, the second talent is to use that for something bigger.
Right.
And so that's great that you're kind of in that wheelhouse now, and it's opportunities are opening up because there's no lack of people that need to learn those skills.
And what more do you need in a corporate environment than a good laugh? Like, your retention is a major thing. Morale is a tremendous thing. Employee satisfaction. I mean, there's areas that if you brought in a speaker that had a great presentation, that energized your organization, along with all the other great things you're doing, that's just a good point. That's a good piece. Like, my presentation is not going to change the trajectory of your business, possibly, but me included with all the other great things you're doing, this is a great place to work. Like, that's just a great benefit. And what you were saying earlier, I got to the point where, I'm like many comedians. I started someone said I was funny or I was funny, I got up on that mic and I was like, I want to be the best that I can be. I'm gonna be the best comedian ever. And so I picked up the banner of comedy and I was like, I'm going, I was in these churches. Well, I need to go to clubs. I started going to clubs. I started going to open mics. I cut my teeth. I got on the road. I did all the stuff that they tell us to do, except for like moving to LA and New York. I separated those things. I applied for festivals. I auditioned. I did all that stuff. And I got to the point where like, why am I holding the banner of comedy? Like, comedy's not going to send me a reward at the end of this and say, man, you were a great soldier in the army of comedy. It's like, comedy's a skill.
Yes.
And when my identity was a comedian, I missed opportunities for things that wasn't comedy. But I realized that I'm a leader. I have the skill of doing stand-up comedy. So I'm a comedian. I'm proud of being a comedian, but I have that skill along with my desire is to help people grow as leaders in life. So if you get a laugh, I'm ecstatic about that. But what I want you to have is a better life. I want you to walk away after an interaction with me saying, man, I can do a little bit more. I have a little bit more information. I can make a little better decision. One of my life's motto is I want to leave things better than the way I found them. Whether that's with comedy, whether that's with speaking, whether that's with just being a good friend. I just think that we can get caught up with our identity as being a comedian, and I think that limits us in some regard.
No, it's typical because comedy is an ego-driven art form, and we do get stuck trying to prove ourselves. Probably more than improving ourselves. Right. And then if we get to the part where we improve ourselves, then we can affect others.
Right.
But just proving to somebody that I'm funny, like that check doesn't cash. It's just a check you got. No bank cashes that check.
Right. And you probably got that validation years ago. Like when the first person laughed, you funny.
Yeah.
Like when do you keep? When do you keep you keep moving the standard? And the other thing I often say, okay, you're funny, but what are you doing with that platform?
Right.
Like, how are you improving the world?
Yeah.
Like, what is your legacy? What are you doing with that gift, that talent, that ability? And I just have made up in my mind, man, I'm going to leave a mark on this place, whether it's comedically, whether it's as a leader, whether it's as a husband, whether it's as a father. My life is more than how much money I made doing stand-up or whether I was a household name or if I was the next Richard Pryor, Chris Rock, Seinfeld, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, whoever. It's like I begin to set what I think success is. Like when you have other people tell you what success is, you'll be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. I know what success is in my mind, and that's the direction that I head.
That's good. And that makes it easy to say no to things that don't follow that path.
Exactly.
When you don't have that path, it's
and then it's kind of like you can't reap where you're not sowing. So how am I going to get bigger opportunities? I'm always sowing in small things. Not that I'm too big to do small opportunities, but man, I got big vision.
Right.
And so to argue, I'm thinking currently like where I am in my career, I'm not. And I say this a little facetiously. I don't care about bookings. If I do what I'm supposed to do, I'm gonna get bookings.
Right. Everything will fall in line.
I'm at a place where I'm getting bookings. Even if I have to say, okay, let everybody know my price is a couple $100. I'll work every day.
Right.
But my goal is to say, no, man, I want to leave a legacy for my family. I think I could reach more people. So if I reach people in a comedy club, imagine how many people I can reach in an arena or meet with a book or with a lecture or what. So I love comedy. I'm a student of comedy. I am the comics comic, but it's a vehicle to get me where I think my life story is to be told. So
that's good. Well, man, it's good hanging out with you today.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
I could probably talk hours and hours. Like you're on my favorite subjects, comedy and leadership.
Hey, man, I love
all day
it,
long,
man.
all day long on that. Well, I appreciate it, Mike.
Oh,
good to spend some time with you.
Thanks for having me on, man.
It's going to be great. I'll cut in some of your comedy, too, so people can hear you.
Good stuff.
It's going to be fun. And I'll also let them know where to find you online.
Okay.
Very cool. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Mike Goodwin. Check him out, Mike Goodwin, online. It's comedian MikeGoodwin.com. You can follow him on Twitter or find him on Hope you enjoyed that episode with Mike Goodwin. You can find him online. It's comedianmikegoodwin.com. That has all of his tour dates, all his information about his speaking, as well as his comedy. A lot of good stuff in there, and I think he's just a fun guy to know. So if you're not following him already, you should get in there and follow Mike Goodwin. Have some fun with him. Don't forget, I've got the Third Coast Comedy Graduation Show on July 12th. The writing class, July 9, 16, and 23, is right around the corner. So you want to make sure you get involved with that. That's Monday nights, July 9, 16, and 23. You do need to reserve a spot for that. So shoot me an email, schooloflaughs@gmail.com. And again, don't forget to check out the Art of Bombing podcast. A lot of different episodes, a lot of interesting folks, lots of stories about horrendous, torturous bombing stage sets. So check it out, and check us out next time here on the School of Laughs podcast. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay funny.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.